guys, Kay here, welcome back to my channel. Now, there are a lot of things that we'd like to tell our past selves. Things that we should have done, things that we maybe shouldn't have done, whether that be 1, 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 years ago. For example, we might have told ourselves in the past to pick up that hockey club and maybe we might have gotten really good at hockey. Or maybe we shouldn't have downed that bottle of Grey Goose and attempted to navigate home whilst heavily intoxicated in the past. The point being, here are 5 things I wish I knew before I became a software engineer. Number 1 is to get really good at one language first before you try and pick up other languages. Now, it's really easy to sound impressive to your friends and family who may not have a technical background, that you know Java, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, C++, C, C#, but you may have only learned how to do really simple, the absolute basics. You know, you can say hello world in all those languages, but that's not what's going to help you get that first job or, you know, progress in a career in software development. It's that understanding of the core technicals and fundamentals that's really going to help you. So before you pick up another language, just make sure you're confidently able to do, you know, the intermediate/advanced level questions on HackerRank. You can build a web application without too much of an issue. You can use RESTful APIs in it, databases, etc. At the end of the day, your mastery of syntax is never what's really going to be tested, because there's always Google, Stack Overflow if you ever want to know how to write something. But knowing why you're writing it, your mastery of those concepts, that's what's going to be really beneficial for you as you progress and, you know, throughout your career as a software developer. Of course, once you've gotten really good at one language, then, you know, feel free to pick up another language, but only once you've really gotten a good grasp of those core fundamentals and technicals. Step number 2 is something that I like to call tutorial purgatory. Now what this is when you're essentially sat there going tutorial after tutorial, step after step, and you find yourself just kind of lost in the circle of following online tutorials and not really building anything. Now, I suffered from this quite a lot. I still kind of do to some extent, but it was, I think, when I joined my boot camp, which was Makers Academy, I learned to become much more pragmatic. So they kind of force you not to use tutorials too much, but to just understand the basics, understand the requirements of what it is you're building, and then to kind of build it how you think it should be built. And obviously there are resources online that you can use. Stack Overflow is a really good one, but it's down to you to build it how you think and then kind of learn from that as you get feedback through code reviews and through paired programming, and just kind of, you know, learning how you would learn if you were actually working as a software developer. Now, it's fairly understandable to need tutorials just to kind of get that base knowledge. So stop following a tutorial through, you know, every single step X, Y, and Z. Just learn the fundamentals, the basics that you need to know, and then from there use your online resources that are available to you, Stack Overflow, Google, etc., and just start building, because that's how you're going to learn. You're going to learn through building, and that is when you start to really think like a developer. Number 3, now this is a really important one for myself, and it's one that I actually told other people, so it's not really something that I would tell myself, but something that I want to continue echoing to other people. And that is, when you're a beginner going for your first role, to really think about prioritizing large, well-established companies as opposed to going for those flashy startups. And there's a couple of reasons why. The first reason is large, well-established companies, they normally have more scope for providing you guidance. You know, they're not as time pressured as these startups which have limited funding. And you really do need that guidance when you're starting off from someone who's more senior or seniors. And you won't really get that in a startup as often, because that is one of these kind of selling points of a startup, is you're given a lot more responsibility early on, and that is supposed to accelerate your learning, which it can do in some cases. But I would say you will still learn, you know, a lot, and you'll learn it the correct way, and that can actually save yourself a lot more time when you are in a large, well-established company. Another core reason which I am actually looking back and extremely thankful for is, if there's ever any kind of economic instability, a large, well-established company is a lot less at risk of having redundancies. And I know quite a lot of people who did go for those flashy startups, and unfortunately they did get made redundant because of you know, the pandemic. But it is something to take into consideration as well, because one of the worst things that can happen to you when you're in your first role is to get made redundant, and then all of a sudden there's a stopper in your learning and your progression. You know, you're not gaining that commercial experience anymore. Instead, you're just kind of going through recruiters, online applications, and you don't really want to be in that position. There will always be a lot of people who argue in favor of going for startups. You know, you have more responsibilities, and you know, these startups are industry disrupting, which is probably the most TED Talky overused phrase in existence. But you know, there are some startups where you can really grow and excel in, but most startups in reality, they will fail, and you don't want to be in that failing end. So I would say for your first role, prioritize large companies. As you gain more experience and you know you can find jobs fairly quickly, you know, when you do leave a company, then I say that at that point it's, you know, perfectly fine if, you know, you want to be in a startup or you don't want to be in a large company. It's up to you at that point. Number 4 is getting really good at using Stack Overflow at an early stage. Now, back when I was kind of still going through my learning stages, I would try and attempt the problem myself. I would sit there, I'd think of it kind of like cheating if I resorted to Stack Overflow or, you know, some online resource. But really, that's going to teach you how to be more like an actual developer, because you know, in the real world, you're not going to sit there trying to write out long, tedious code from memory. Someone's probably already written it, so you can pretty much just copy and paste it. Hippity hoppity, your code is now my property. Now, obviously, you do need to understand what the code is doing and, you know, how it's going to be adapted for your own work. So, for example, I'm currently working on a feature in a project I'm doing for my company, which is essentially to get files from the Azure Cloud Blob Storage. And a lot of people have already written the code out for this, so all I had to do literally was just copy and paste it, change the variables, just adapt it for my own project, and it works perfectly fine. I saved myself quite a lot of time, and it's not something I would have been able to do just off the top of my head anyway. And it's not something that, you know, is really going to be beneficial for you if you can do it off the top of your head, because that is the reason why these online resources exist. At the end of the day, it's about, you know, being able to reuse what already exists and just understand the code that you're reusing and how to adapt it. That's when you're going to start thinking a lot more like a developer, and obviously that's going to increase your productivity more, so that you can focus more on the technicals rather than, you know, on the syntax, which is something I spoke about earlier as well. Finally, number 5, which is probably one of the biggest regrets of mine looking back retrospectively, and it's what put me off going into a career in tech in the first place, is this misconception that you need a comp sci degree or you need to be really good at maths, and that is absolutely false. There are more and more routes opening up to get into software development that don't require a degree at all. If you look at Google, for example, they've started to advertise their own kind of vocational courses, which are aimed at getting you into a path into Google. And again, those are a lot shorter than a degree, cost you a lot less. There's boot camps as well. I did a boot camp myself, which was Makers Academy. I've done a full review on that, which I highly recommend you check out. A comp sci degree, you know, it's going to be a 3-4 year commitment. You're going to spend tens of thousands of pounds, dollars on that. And you can do it in a lot less time nowadays and for a lot less money as well. You can even go to self-taught route, which might not cost you anything at all, and you will still end up in the exact same position as a software developer, you know, in whichever company it is that you want to go for. And it's something that I would definitely, those of you who are watching who are thinking of going to tech, explore those options now, because you really do not need a comp sci degree at all nowadays. A lot of employers are realizing that by having that requirement of a comp sci degree, they were losing out on a lot of really good self-taught developers or developers that went through coding boot camps. And you really don't want to kind of limit your talent pool in that way, especially nowadays when all of the top companies kind of fighting for that top talent as well in their employment pool. Rightio, so that was 5 things I wish I knew before I became a software developer. And please do reach out in the comments if you have any questions for me. And as always, thank you so much guys for watching. Please do like and subscribe to support my content, and I will see you in the next video. See ya.